Alice Gray woke with a gasp. Sweat slicked her skin. Her heart hammered against her ribs. The nightmare clung to her, vivid and terrifying. A dark cellar, a looming figure, a scarred face twisted into a grotesque grin, a glinting curved sickle. She threw back the covers, desperate for the normalcy of her bedroom. Her breath hitched. 3 long, deep slashes marred the fabric of her nightgown. The air hung heavy with the metallic scent of blood. Fear coiled in her stomach. This was no ordinary nightmare. This felt real, dangerously real. She scrambled out of bed, her bare feet sinking into the plush carpet. The room was silent, save for the frantic thump of her own heart. Her eyes darted to the window. The first rays of dawn were just beginning to paint the sky with hues of orange and pink. It felt so real, Alice whispered, her voice trembling. Lily Thompson, her best friend since childhood, listened intently, her brow furrowed with concern. They were perched on the edge of the playground, the familiar sounds of the schoolyard a stark contrast to the chilling tale Alice recounted. "I woke up with these—" Alice hesitated, pulling at the collar of her shirt to show the now bandaged scratches. Lily gasped. "Alice, that's awful, but it's just a dream, right?" Alice shook her head, her eyes wide with fear. "It felt so real, Lily, and the scratches, they weren't there before." George Lentz, Lily's lanky, ever-present boyfriend, leaned closer, his expression sceptical. "Maybe you scratched yourself in your sleep," he offered. Alice shot him a withering look. "It wasn't like that, George. This felt different." Lily, ever the loyal friend, placed a comforting hand on Alice's arm. "What did this man look like?" she asked softly. Alice closed her eyes, her face pale. He was scarred, burned. He wore this sickle. Her voice cracked, and it had blades. The air crackled with nervous energy. It was Friday night, and Alice's house was buzzing with the usual pre-sleepover excitement. Except tonight, the air hung heavy with unspoken fear. Alice, Lily and George huddled on the floor, pillows and sleeping bags scattered around them. The flickering light from the television cast long, dancing shadows on the walls. "Stop it, George," Lily hissed, swatting at his arm playfully. "You're being ridiculous." George had been recounting every scary movie he could think of, his attempts at humour falling flat. A knock on the front door sent a jolt through Alice. Her heart leaped into her throat. "That'll be Tom," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Tom Lane, Alice's boyfriend, strode into the living room, his face breaking into a wide grin. He exuded an easy confidence that settled some of the unease in the room. As the night wore on, the teens slipped into a familiar routine of laughter, whispered secrets and shared dreams. But as sleep finally claimed them, a darkness descended upon the house, a darkness that chilled them to the bone. Tom woke with a start. A scream pierced the darkness. Alice. Murder. The word hung in the air, heavy and cold. Constable James Thompson, Lily's father, looked down at Tom Lane with an unflinching gaze. The young man sat huddled in a chair in the interrogation room, his face pale, his eyes bloodshot. "We found her," the constable continued, his voice rough with emotion, "in her own home, brutally murdered." Tom shook his head, his whole body trembling. "No," he whispered. "No, it can't be." He had woken to Alice's screams, to the chilling sight of her being slashed by an unseen force. The memory sent a fresh wave of terror through him. He had fled, his mind unable to process the horror unfolding before his eyes. "We found the murder weapon," Constable Thompson pressed, placing a blood-stained hunting knife on the table. It was Tom's. He had used it to build the bonfire earlier that evening. "I didn't do this," Tom choked out, his voice raw with desperation. "I loved her." But his protests fell on deaf ears. The evidence was stacked against him, and so Tom Lane, Alice's boyfriend, was arrested for her murder. Section 5. Marked in sleep. The school corridors buzzed with hushed whispers. The news of Alice's murder had spread like wildfire, leaving a trail of shock and fear in its wake. Lily moved through the halls in a daze. The weight of Alice's death, the arrest of Tom, it all felt surreal. A nightmare she couldn't wake from. She sat numbly through her classes, the words washing over her without meaning. As she drifted off, the familiar face of Leland Russell filled her vision. He was there, in the dark cellar, his sickle glinting in the shadows. He lunged at her, his laughter echoing through her dreamscape. A searing pain shot up her thigh, yanking her from the nightmare. She jolted upright, knocking over her chair in the process. The classroom erupted in gasps and murmurs. Lily cradled her thigh, her breath coming in short, panicked bursts. There on her thigh was a bright red welt, a burn mark. He was reaching out from her nightmares, branding her with his touch. Section 6. The Scarf of Horror. The air in the asylum was thick, heavy with the scent of decay and despair. Lily sat on the edge of the examination table, her body trembling with annoyance. After her experience at school, her parents, desperate for answers, had taken her to this wretched place. Hypnosis? Lily's voice was laced with irritation. You want to hypnotize me? The doctor, a cold-faced woman with an unsettling smile, nodded. It's a safe and effective way to explore your nightmares, Lily, she explained, to understand what's happening. Lily hesitated, fear warring with a desperate need for answers. She had to know why she was being haunted, why Alice had been murdered. The doctor's chilling voice guided her into a deep trance, and then the nightmare began. The cellar, the shadows, the glinting blade, but this time Lily fought back. She lunged, her hand closing around a scarf on the man's neck. She woke with a gasp. The scarf clutched tightly in her hand. It was real. Scrawled on the inside in faded ink were the words Leland Russell. Section 7. The Monster Among Us. The fire crackled in the hearth, casting dancing shadows on the walls. Lily sat huddled on the sofa, the scarf resting on the coffee table before her. Her parents, their faces etched with worry, sat opposite her. Leland Russell, her mother whispered, her voice trembling. He was a monster. Lily's father, usually a man of few words, took over. He preyed on children, Lily. Lured them away. Murdered them. Lily's blood ran cold. What happened to him? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. He was caught, her father continued, his voice heavy with anger but released on a technicality. The families, they were outraged, her mother added. They took matters into their own hands. Lily's eyes widened. They killed him. Her parents exchanged a look. They burned him alive, her mother said, her voice barely audible. In the boiler room of the old abandoned preschool, the one on Mary Street. Lily's breath caught in her throat. Mary Street, the street where Alice had lived, where she had died. Section 8. Facing the Nightmare. The house creaked and groaned around her. Lily sat alone in the darkness, the only light coming from the street lamp outside her bedroom window. George lay slumped on the floor, his eyes glazed over, his chest still. He had fallen asleep just for a moment, and Russell had taken him, just like Alice, just like Tom, whose suicide in his cell was clearly Russell's work. Rage, raw and consuming, surged through Lily. She wouldn't let him take her too. She would face him, and she would end this. She had lured Russell from her nightmare into the waking world, using the fear he thrived on as bait. Now, he was trapped in her basement, surrounded by gasoline, a trail of it leading back to her hand. One flick of her lighter, and it would all be over. With a cry of defiance, Lily threw the lighter. The flames erupted, engulfing Russell in a fiery inferno. He screamed, a sound filled with rage and agony, and then silence. Section 9. No escape. The morning mist hung heavy in the air, shrouding the street in an ethereal glow. Lily stood on the sidewalk, her body trembling with exhaustion and relief. It was over. Leland Russell was gone. Her parents emerged from the house, their faces etched with concern. "Lily, thank God you're all right," her mother cried, pulling her into a tight embrace. George appeared beside them, his face etched with relief. "It's really over," he said, his voice choked with emotion. "You did it." Lily managed a weak smile. "Let's just go," she said. She couldn't stand to be in this town a moment longer. As she climbed into the back seat of George's car, a sense of unease washed over her. The car door slammed shut, the sound unnaturally loud in the stillness of the morning. The locks clicked into place. A child's sing-song voice, chilling in its familiarity, echoed through the car. 1, 2, Freddie's coming for you. The roof of the car began to creak and groan, metal twisting and warping. Lily's blood ran cold. It wasn't over. It would never be over.